You will not believe what happened. Hey guys, it's Jeslyn Bearden, and I can't wait to tell y'all about one of the best days of my life. It is the craziest thing I've probably ever done. And would I do it again? I don't know, but I'm going to tell you about it. So a little bit of, oh my God, did I just delete my whole? Oh, I didn't. Okay. So a little bit of backstory with my previous births. I had my first child when I was 18. I was absolutely clueless. I didn't know what I wanted or what I could do or anything. I went in there with no plan, totally clueless, and I just did what I thought was the norm. So ended up on Pitocin because I wasn't progressing fast enough, so they say, and got an epidural. You know, everything was very textbook. I ran a really high fever after delivery, and I couldn't touch my baby for 24 hours, which is absolutely insane to even think about. Overall was not the best experience, but thankfully I had a healthy delivery and I pushed for like 15 minutes, first child. So moving on, when I was 26, I gave birth to Asher Gray Bearden, and was I 26? When I was 26, which was only like last year, I gave birth to Asher Gray Bearden, my middle child. That one, obviously I was more educated. I was a more experienced mother. And even then, there was so much that I didn't know about childbirth. So I had a really miserable pregnancy. I gained a ton of weight. I had like debilitating pregnancy carpal tunnel that hindered me from driving, texting, even sleeping. It was really rough. So I opted for a medical induction. I don't regret that decision. It went really well, honestly. But of course, here we go again, Pitocin, epidural. And I ran a really high fever after delivery again, which we all presumed was from the medications that I was on, because I've heard that that's common. So fast forward, I get pregnant with little August James after 24 hours away from my 5-month-old baby. I don't know that I'd recommend that, but we did, and it was a surprise. But we started researching, or really I started researching pain-free birth accounts and natural birth stories. And I just started talking to some friends that I've had that have had natural deliveries, and one of my relatives that had a natural delivery. And I started kind of exploring that option and learning a lot about childbirth and just the way that our bodies were made to do this. It's a physiological thing, just like breathing and sleeping and blinking. And so anyway, I learned a lot. I did a lot of research, and I became very quickly passionate about wanting to have a natural delivery. And I think Grayson thought it was a phase, but it wasn't a phase. It didn't ever go away. I was like very passionate about it. And we started to look into hiring a doula. So made the decision to hire a doula. Again, just furthering my education. I learned so much from Elizabeth. And I'll tell you more about her in just a little bit. But if you don't know what a doula is, she's basically like a birth coach. So she's not a midwife. She's not going to do cervical checks or anything medical or deliver your baby or anything like that. She's literally coaching you through birth when it comes to laboring positions, pushing positions, things that you should know, things that you should watch out for. And she's a person that makes sure that if you're in a hospital setting like I was, that your wishes are going to be respected and your preferences. We didn't call it a birth plan because nothing goes according to plan, but preferences are being respected, and that as long as it's safe, you get what your heart's desire is. And my heart's desire was a natural, just like spirit-filled, like I wanted a Holy Spirit delivery. That's what I wanted. And I wanted it to be a controlled, peaceful atmosphere. I didn't want to be scared. I knew that there was nothing to be scared of. So anyway, let's jump into it. So because my doula is amazing, she took lots of notes, and this is extensive. I have like timestamps for everything. So on June 1st, I was 38 weeks and 6 days, so almost 39 weeks. I had my 39-week appointment. I opted for a membrane sweep. The doctor said there was a 50-50 chance that I go into labor in the next 24 hours. So we were like, okay, well, it's like flipping a coin, heads or tails. And I went to bed that night. I contracted all through the night, but I really wasn't sure if it was just like I was irritated from the membrane sweep or if I was actually in early labor. Well, around 4 a.m., the contractions started to become more regular, like 5 to 7 minutes apart consistently. And I was like, okay, that might be early labor. And between 4 and 7 a.m., they were really ramping up, like to every 2 or 3 minutes. And they were starting to get a little more painful too. So I was like, okay, so let's call the doula. So we called Elizabeth. She came over and we were all just kind of waiting to see is this the real thing? Is it not the real thing? It was definitely starting to hurt. So they were starting to get more painful. And because of my quick active labors with the other ones, we decided to go into the hospital. So I go in, it's about 7 something a.m. and they check me. I'm still at a 3. I was at a 3 the day before. So there's been no cervical change, which means I probably wasn't in labor. At least I wasn't in active labor yet. We were pretty bummed because it really felt like the real thing and my contractions were pretty consistent. But we just kind of went in too early. So it's really hard to know when to go in and when to not go in. And we were just like, do we go home? I don't want to get sent home. I really feel like today's the day. They had us walk around for 2 hours and they said, we'll check you in 2 hours. If you have not progressed at all in, your cervix and everything, dilation and effacement, then you're not in labor. So I was like, okay, bet. So we went walking. 2 hours later, we come in and they check me. Still at a 3, but like kind of at a 4. So they called it a 4. Shout out to that nurse. And some change had happened. So it was like, okay, this is happening. Well, then the nurse that's checking me is like, you know what? I don't feel a bag of water. And I'm like, huh? Excuse me? And she said, yeah, I feel his hair. So I was like, what does that mean? Like, my water broke at some point? Well, it turns out earlier that morning, my water had ruptured, but it was a slow leak, so I didn't even notice. But she was checking my cervix for dilation and felt my baby's hair. So then it was like, okay, you're getting admitted. Today is the day. We were so excited. So we get into a room, we get everything set up, bags unpacked, the diffuser's going, we've got worship music playing. I'm excited. I'm like, let's do this. My birth team, which was my husband, Grayson, and my doula, Elizabeth, we were all just very prepared to take this on and to manage the pain and whatever. So at 12:42 p.m., the baby started having heart decels, and that was a little bit scary. I had to be put on oxygen. They had to do some extra fluids and try to get him to settle down. But we had initially planned on doing intermittent monitoring on him. And after that, it was like, forget it. I just want him monitored. I want to make sure that his heart's normal. When we saw the heart decels, my doctor briefly brought up a C-section, and that was like, okay, so I've never had a C-section before, and I'm not going to lie, that kind of scares me. And I started to get just a little bit nervous, but a lot of this day was just like surrendering my plan for the Lord's plan. And we were going to be okay with anything as long as the baby and myself were okay. So my early labor lasted what felt like forever. I was not progressing as quickly as I would have liked to. But my doula was really good to remind me that just because my cervix hadn't changed at all doesn't mean that I wasn't progressing. She would say things like, okay, yes, you're still at a 4, but look, baby's station has dropped a whole station. Like that means the baby's moving down or you're more effaced. And she was just very good at encouraging me that my body was still doing what it was meant to do. So at 3:24, my doctor came and checked me and I was still only at a 5. 3:24 p.m. Mind you, I got admitted that morning. So it'd been a long day. I'd been laboring and things weren't happening as quickly as I wanted them to. And my doctor was only on call until 7 p.m. So it was kind of like, okay, we're running out of time. My doctor's only here 3.5 hours. I really didn't want the other doctor that was on call. I wanted my doctor. I trusted my doctor. And she came in and she was just like, look, I don't want you to change your birth plan or add Pitocin or do anything just to have me deliver the baby. And she encouraged me to stick to my plan. And that was really great. So I just loved everybody that I was surrounded by when I was in labor. But so once my doctor left the room, I decided to switch positions and labor on the toilet for a little bit. My doula had told me that being on the toilet allows your pelvic floor to really relax because your body is used to relaxing on the toilet and allowing things to pass. And so I sat on the toilet for maybe just like not even 20 minutes and labored on the toilet for a little while. And my contractions very quickly started to get more painful. And I remember looking at my doula and being like, that hurts a little more than it did before. And so she helped me to manage that pain with counter pressure. Grayson was applying counter pressure. They were kind of tag teaming and doing the hip squeezes. She was helping me manage my breathing. She would look at me. She probably looked at me 100 times that day and said, relax your shoulders, relax your face, and make low sounds. Because when my voice started to get high pitched, she was like, lower, lower. And so I was like, mooing like a cow. I'm not even kidding. But it all really helped me to manage the pain. It was like, I consider myself a baby. I don't consider myself someone with a high pain tolerance. And I still can't believe that my body was able to do this. Okay, sorry, had to take a quick nursing and diaper change break, but we are back with our guest, August James. So like I said, around 3:30 or 3:40, I was 5 centimeters dilated. Well, fast forward 1.5 hours later, my doctor came and checked me. I was at an 8. An 8. Mentally, I was not prepared to progress that fast. And so all of a sudden, all of this fear really set in. And I was like, oh my gosh, even if I want an epidural now, I can't have one. And I don't know why. I guess up until that point, in the back of my mind, there was kind of like this idea that if it got to be too much for me to bear, like the option was there. I always had the option. It was like plan B is still in the background. All of a sudden, I was like, there's no option now. I'm going through with this. I'm going to have an unmedicated natural delivery. I mean, I hadn't even had Tylenol, y'all, like no medications, nothing to help me progress in labor except my body and movement and positions. And so I told my doula, I said, I'm nervous. I'm getting scared. And she just really encouraged me. And she was like, that's normal. You're getting close to the end, and just know that your body knows what to do. Your body will open up. Your body is doing it already. And look how far that you've come. You've made it to an 8 and you're managing these waves really well. Like the intensity of the contractions was nothing like I expected it to be. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like a walk in the park. I wasn't, giggling during contractions or anything. It was very much like it took effort and energy to make it through it. It took low sounds and bracing myself, but also relaxing my body and my face. And so I utilized all these things that I had learned to manage the intensity of the contractions. And one thing that was really, really different because keep in mind, the other 2 deliveries that I had were not only medicated, but they were induced with Pitocin. Pitocin contractions and natural contractions, oh my gosh, world of a difference. My contractions in my natural delivery, my contractions in my natural labor never got closer than 3 or 4 minutes apart. I don't know if that's the norm, if that happens for everybody, but they stayed 3 or 4 minutes apart through the entire labor, which meant that I had 3 or 4 minute breaks between each one. And the contractions themselves were very slow to build, and then they peaked for a little bit, and then they were slow to come back down. So that peak, really intense pain was only for just such a short time. And I just remember telling myself in my mind, you can do anything for a minute. You can do anything for 1 minute. And so the natural contractions were nothing compared to Pitocin contractions that I had felt before between a 3 and a 7. So it was 5:04 when I was checked and told I was at an 8. Well, fast forward to about 6:00 p.m. I was at a 10. It was time to get ready to push. This is where things took a turn. I realized in that moment that I had prepared myself and done all this research and really just got ready to manage the pain and the intensity of the contractions. But I didn't do much work in preparing myself to push this baby out. I'm increasingly nervous and trying my best to just really lean into the Lord and lean into my team and manage things. And so I get in the throne position, which is I'm in the bed. The bottom of the bed is dropped out under me so that I could deliver the baby. And are waiting for some contractions so I can do some practice pushes. Well, during the practice pushes, the baby comes on down. So it's like, okay, we're pushing. Let's just go. Well, my delivery was 11 minutes long, just like it was with Asher. I can't even explain to you what pushing a baby out actually feels like. Am I allowed to say butthole on YouTube? All I can say is that at one point, I really thought I was going to blow my butthole off onto the wall. It was the most intense thing, like taking the biggest crap of your life. Except you get a baby after. So it was great. Honestly, when I look back at what it felt like, the contractions themselves were very, very, very intense while pushing. But in between contractions, I don't remember like a whole bunch of pain when baby was coming through. But I kind of started to panic just a little bit. They put a mirror in front of me and asked me if I wanted to see. So I could see his head. I was making eye contact with his head. I was laying on my side. And I was just like, I can't. Like, I was so afraid that I was just going to like rip everything down there and feel all this immense pain. And I was terrified in that moment. And my doctor literally got up in my face and was like, if you can give it your everything with this one push, you will get this whole baby out. He'll be here. It'll be over. And I was just thinking, okay, the quickest way to end this right now is just to push. And you literally have to let everything, every amount of hesitancy that you have to let it all go in that moment. And so I did. I gave it my everything. And in that one push, his entire body just came on out. And delivery was 11 minutes long. And in that moment, y'all, that it went from intense to just like pure bliss, joy. Like, I cannot explain the relief that I felt. We were immediately like, oh my God, it's over. The first thing I said was, I did it. I didn't even ask how the baby was. I knew the baby was fine. I can hear him crying. But this immense joy just came over me, and I was laughing uncontrollably because I was like, I just did that. I just pushed that baby out and felt it. And like, all in all, managed it really well. I mean, definitely the pushing part, I freaked out for sure. But whenever I was looking back on it, I thought I had screamed through the whole thing. And recently I was talking to my doula. We were just kind of debriefing about the birth. And I said, well, I managed it really well up until the pushing. And she was like, what do you mean? You managed it well the whole time. And I said, well, no. I mean, I was like, I lost it during pushing. Like, I was screaming. And she said, you were not screaming. She said you were roaring. You were making low sounds. You were doing exactly what you were supposed to do. Your body did it. And I was like, oh, so that's normal to do all that. Like, because, I've seen some natural delivery videos where the woman's just like, oh, here's the baby, like very calm. And it was not like that. It was very primal. Like, I literally was like an animal. I thought of myself as like an elephant, maybe. Pushing out a baby elephant. A large one. And on that note, August was 7 pounds and 2 ounces when he was born. It was the most beautiful, joyous moment ever, ever, ever. And recovery immediately was so much better because I was unmedicated. I did, however, run a really high fever after delivery again. So there you go. That was the whole reason I tried for a natural delivery, and I ended up running a fever anyway. But I guess it's just the way that my body reacts to delivering a baby. I don't know. But Elizabeth, my doula, helped me so much. If you can, hire a doula. If you have it in your heart that you want to have a natural delivery, get yourself a doula. Let her help you. Let her teach you. I'll leave information about my doula if you're local. She was amazing. You want her on your team. So here is baby August. I pushed this out and felt it. He's adorable. He's getting very big. He wasn't this big when I pushed him out, but he's gaining weight fast. He's breastfeeding really well, and we're just enjoying getting to know him. And yeah, that is my 3-hour natural unmedicated doula assisted delivery. I did that. So if you're watching this, if you stumbled upon this video because you're considering having a natural birth and it kind of scares you, I was scared too in the beginning. I did a lot of research. I just want to encourage you to find somebody that you trust to learn from, to glean from. Follow the Pain-Free Birth account and some other accounts that are for natural deliveries, and learn the physiological aspect of birth and how much of a mental game it is. I promise you, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Okay, so I posted a Q&A in stories about just some things that y'all wanted me to cover, or really people on Instagram wanted me to cover. One of them was advice for first-time dads. So that's better coming from you than it is from Dad. Yeah.
But so when the baby was coming, I was having to just kind of do research, get my mind equipped for, like, how do I change a diaper? Like, what's a haka? I've never heard of a haka before. I thought, all this different kind of stuff. But I think the biggest thing for first-time dads, especially leading up to the birth, is you are your wife's biggest support system in that moment. And get to know their birth plan, get to know your wife's birth plan. That way you can be her biggest advocate whenever it comes time for the birth, because her whole focus in that moment is just get through the birth. Nothing else matters. Nothing else around her.
Right. Safely and healthily.
Yeah.
And
she's in the zone, and you need to protect that zone. So that's some advice I would have. You need to be her support system, be her advocate, and you help maintain the peace in that delivery room. You help set the atmosphere. And then after the fact, I think I would also say,
change diapers.
Yeah, get up in there.
Yeah,
all up in there. Get dirty. That's okay. You're gonna get peed on a couple times, more than once.
Probably several times.
Often,
if you have a boy.
Yeah. And so, especially if they're breastfeeding in those stages, it's like your wife is taking on the brunt of that work.
Watch the bottles.
Yeah, you need to get served.
Bring her Stanley Cup.
Do whatever you can. Don't just sit on the couch in the recliner watching whatever's on, what game's on that night. Like, be that support system. It's important.
Next question was, how long was the pain? I mean, it's birth. I mean, it from beginning to end. During contractions, anyways. Did you tear? I did not tear with my last 2 babies at all. I tore with the first one. And ways to manage pain or fear. I feel like I covered that. How you felt encouraged. I think I covered that too, but I think it's different for every woman. We learned the ways that I manage pain is by being distracted. And the way that I receive encouragement is through a lot of words of affirmation. So I had little birth affirmation cards on the wall. I had Grayson and Elizabeth just really talking me through it, being like, you're doing so good. Your body's doing what it's supposed to do. And that was really encouraging for me. But find what's encouraging for you.
I would also say one thing me and the doula worked on privately, outside of Jessam's knowledge, we went and got video clips of family members.
Oh, I forgot about that.
People close to her in our life that gave her a quick 30 seconds to a minute, just word of encouragement, just you can do this, keep on pressing forward.
That was really
And that's a nice little surprise you can give to your wife.
It made me cry.
Yeah.
And especially when I saw my grandma's video and she was all, I did it, you can do it. Those are really the only questions I feel like, answering.
I think it's also worth noting is wherever you're giving birth, the staff, the care team, the medical professionals that are there with you, butter up to them. We brought that basket with
snacks,
Rockstar energy drinks and snacks and mint, gum, all kinds of stuff, just showing that appreciation to them because they work really hard and they'll work hard for you if you give them some treats. So
make sure you trust your team, your doctor, whoever's in the room. Make sure that it's who you want in the room.
Yeah. And invite the Holy Spirit to be in the room.
Yes.
That's a big thing. Pray up that room.
Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah. And this is the baby.
Here he is.